This episode we're going to look at a show called UFO Hunters on History Channel. This is by request. And what can I say? I mean, just looking at the intro, we got some guys, pretending to do some science, and then we got this guy standing there doing nothing. And so we need to find out who these people are. Quick search reveals that the guy in the glasses, he's the team leader. This is Bill Burns. He is the editor of UFO Magazine, which, if you're familiar with UFO Magazine, we already kind of know what to expect now out of the show. It's going to be completely biased. This is a UFO version of Bigfoot Hunters, or Finding Bigfoot, or whatever the hell that show is, with Matt Moneymaker, where you can't have somebody who's, the lead quack at an organization, trying to run a legitimate investigation, because he can't do it. It's out of his capabilities. So let's get to the show and see what this is all about.
Mention the phrase UFO crash, and Roswell, New Mexico immediately comes to mind. It is the most famous UFO incident of all time, and marks the year 1947 as the beginning of the modern UFO era. But few people realize it wasn't America's first UFO-related incident. 2 weeks before Roswell, another UFO incident took place over Puget Sound in Washington state. But there are two key differences between this crash in Washington and Roswell. 2 people were killed, and there is still physical evidence left behind.
We found some of the wreck.
UFO Magazine is one of the leading UFO phenomena publications. For more than 22 years, the publishers have gathered an unprecedented archive of eyewitness accounts, video footage, and never-before-seen documents.
In the world of UFO reports, you got 90% of them total bull. The fact is there are 10% that are absolutely real.
In October 2007, based on brand new leads, they reopened the investigation.
Nobody has been able to solve this case.
From underwater retrieval of unknown material, possibly jettisoned by a UFO,
you can't leave any stone unturned,
to the discovery of unidentified debris buried deep within a remote forest.
Is this a UFO site?
Hey guys, check this out.
And analysis of evidence from a confirmed crash site.
Whoa! Oh, whoa! Are we safe?
Is there a logical explanation, or is there a connection between this case and the Roswell incident? Science weighs in.
He reported a UFO, and it resulted in a very tragic event.
For the first time on television, what you are about to see is case number 47001, the UFO before Roswell.
All right, the first thing I have to get out of the way is this has got to be one of the most boring shows I've ever watched. The amount of time I've been sitting here watching these episodes and going through their stuff, checking their facts, because that's basically what we're doing here. This isn't like the ghost shows or the Bigfoot shows where they run around with cameras, because we have nothing to really see here. All they're doing is telling a story, basically, and walking around and talking. And so basically I have to go and do fact check everything they say and kind of analyze what little they actually do in the videos. So I guess first let's get to the story and we'll go from there.
June 21st, 1947. Over 2 weeks before Roswell, logger Harold Dahl, along with his 15-year-old son and 2 crewmen, are on a boat in Puget Sound near Maury Island, Washington. It is a lazy day in an otherwise unremarkable summer, but at 2 p.m., that all changed. Suddenly, 6 bright metallic donut-shaped discs about 100 feet in diameter appear overhead. One of the craft seems to be malfunctioning. It shudders and tips at precarious angles and appears to be ready to crash into the water. Suddenly, it ejects what is described as a massive amount of steaming metallic debris into the sound and onto the beach. The debris crashed down onto Dahl's boat, breaking his son's arm and killing his dog. According to their report, The ejection of the material appeared to fix the problem. The 5 other discs then arranged themselves into a formation around the malfunctioning ship, and they all sped off out of sight in total silence. Dahl and his crew gather some of the debris from the water and from the beach. This event was reported to local police. The testimony of all 4 witnesses was consistent. However, all of the witnesses are now deceased.
All right, that's the story that we're given. But going back and checking like official reports and other things like that, off the internet, what I can find, it tells a little bit different story. But it's basically, we're looking at 1947. This is the kickoff of the UFO craze in America. Just a few days after this, this other guy, Arnold, I believe is his name, is flying an airplane and sees some, they're not discs, they're not donuts, they're kind of shaped like a Batman's boomerang, if you can think of something like that, a batarang. He sees them and he reports that they're skipping like this, because UFOs were originally called skippers. This story is pretty famous. I've read about it since I was a little kid, but this one that we're looking at now is one of the ones that you don't hear a lot about. And Roswell happened right after this as well. And so this is like the kickoff, and everybody sees UFOs after this. And so the government, so they're raising questions like, why would the Air Force, come down and check this stuff out if it wasn't real? Well, you start, they start getting reports that there's extraterrestrial crash. And remember, this is the beginning of it, buzzing around and crashing and shit. Of course, they're going to come check it out. What are they thinking? And they use this as some sort of evidence that it's real. I mean, of course they're going to check it out. And so they don't go check out everyone today because they've been hoaxed so many times and haven't found anything that, why do they bother to go look? But at this time, this is all fresh. And so, yes, of course they're going to go check this stuff out. So we actually only hear the side of the story that they want you to hear in this show. Turns out this Dahl guy changed his story and said he admitted that he hoaxed it and he got this slag material from a local smelter. And the other guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, you'll hear it, or I'll annotate it in. The other witness guy, I believe he admitted that he hoaxed it too, but he was implicated years later as one of the gunmen on the grassy knoll in the JFK assassination, which was kind of funny, that how these same core group of people, just go from conspiracy to conspiracy, and they're all in this big, community of conspirators or whatever, or conspiracy theorists. That was just kind of funny. So let's go see what else they got to say.
The debris, or slag, retrieved by Harold Dahl and his crew was reported to be dark stone, lava-like in appearance, with metallic properties. Some have speculated it was in some way connected with the disk's propulsion system. A jet experiencing difficulty will dump its fuel to lighten the load and lessen the chance of fire during an emergency landing. Was this mysterious disk following the same protocol?
All right, so they're looking for some of this crap that this UFO dropped, and Scuba Steve's going to jump in the water and see if he can find it.
Saw some stones on the ground that may be related to slag somehow. In doing an investigation like this, you can't leave any stone unturned.
All right, you can see the humor involved in this show, and so you can get the tone of it. It's horrible.
You got some samples down there of soil.
I thought it couldn't hurt.
Well, we could classify these pretty quickly, I'm sure. Whoa, hold on, gentlemen. This is very interesting right here. This fits the description of black lava type. I mean, if you look at the structure, just look at the surface structure on it, the texture. Look at compared to the rest of the samples. But this one is definitely unique. This is exactly the description of what we're hearing, and it fits the profile.
The team moves from the dive site to the beach. In order to comb the debris field completely, the team divides the area into a grid of 3-foot by 3-foot sections, beginning...
Hey, yada, yada, yada. Okay, you get the point. They find some shit, they send it to the lab. Let's move on.
George Early is a UFO researcher and longtime resident of the Pacific Northwest. He was brought in by the team because he has an encyclopedic knowledge of this case and of the events that resulted from this encounter.
So they bring in their local expert who does absolutely nothing, adds nothing to the show except retell the story again.
According to Early, the story of Harold Dahl's UFO incident reached the Air Force, and 2 intelligence officers were sent to retrieve the possible UFO debris.
The Air Force intelligence people who came were given a box, like so, of fragments, which they took kind of reluctantly, but they took them back.
So the Air Force B-25 leaves and heads back to where, Hamilton?
Hamilton Field in California. They went out of McCord Field and they headed south, reportedly at 10,000 feet.
So they're 10,000 feet, and that's when problems start to happen.
Yeah.
And all of this is in the reports. They have no reason to bring this old guy out on the beach and retell the whole story all over again and waste even more time. This is absolutely nuts. But at least we're getting to something we can actually take a look at now.
According to official Air Corps reports, on August 1st, 1947, 40 days after the incident, Harold Dahl reported that he was visited by, quote, 2 military intelligence officers who took from him the pieces of debris he and his men collected. The officers brought the specimens on board a B-25 bomber, which was to take them from McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington, to Hamilton Air Force Base in Northern California. What happened in the minutes after takeoff is the biggest mystery of the Maury Island incident. The plane had been thoroughly inspected and overhauled just 2 weeks before. Yet 20 minutes after taking off, the plane crashed in the remote wilderness outside of Kelso, Washington. 2 passengers parachuted to safety, but the 2 pilots died in the crash. According to official Air Corps reports, the plane was brought down by a fire in an internal junction box. But some UFO researchers believe the UFO debris in the cargo hold may have triggered a series of events that brought the plane down.
I think...
All right, now we're getting somewhere. We can at least start throwing conspiracy theories around, because the official report that there was a fire in a junction box, or that's where the fire started, that's not good enough. I mean, the people on the plane who parachuted out and reported this, their word isn't good enough about where this fire started. It had to have been something alien, some UFO cargo just burst into flames and brought this plane down. So since they get to speculate, so do I. So here's what I think happened.
As you can see, my young apprentice, your friends have failed. Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station. Fire at will, Commander.
All right, so since they don't find anything up there at this island, they fly down to where this plane crash happened at and dig around down there, hoping they'll find something that everybody else missed, but they'll find it. They don't find it. I'll make a long story short. They find some plane parts. They dig up some dirt, take soil samples. They take back plane samples that they found, stupid stuff like that, and they have it all analyzed. And the guy who does the analysis is like, "Yep, there was a fire." And so now they want to find out if some magic slag from a UFO can start a fire and bring down an airplane. So they go to a lab to have some guy demonstrate.
On August 1st, 1947, after a reported UFO event, 2 military intelligence officers board an Air Force B-25 bomber to bring mysterious pieces...
God damn, we've heard this story too many fucking times. Quit telling it, Jesus.
Under mounting pressure, Harold Dahl recanted his testimony to the FBI on August 7, 1947. However, until his death, Dahl continued to believe the sighting was real.
Okay, a little side note on that. Remember, this is 1947. The UFO conspiracists claim that he recanted his story under pressure from the infamous Men in Black. This is the story where the traditional guy in the black suit driving the old Cadillac, this is where it comes from. It comes from this story, and this is where the whole Men in Black idea originates. So the conspiracy is that he said he hoaxed it under pressure from the Men in Black because they were going to harm his family if he didn't. So the UFO theorists believe the story is absolutely true and that he actually believed this until the day he died because it was a false confession that he hoaxed it due to pressure from the Men in Black.
Is it possible that this alleged slag material, through some sort of intensive radiation or magnetic field or thermal event, could have brought this airplane down? I'm not sure. We're going to go back to the lab and run some tests.
The team heads to the lab of researcher John Tyndall, who demonstrates how a piece of metallic slag could have a disastrous effect on the mechanical and electrical systems of the B-25.
This is a very close approximation of what that slag might have been or might have looked like.
All right, let me break this down in layman's terms. They don't have a fucking clue as to what that shit was, and they are just simply making crap up at this point.
And because it has some ferrous metal in it, it could be magnetic. Well, what we have here is a relay, such as you might find on that airplane. In fact, there's probably dozens of them on the airplane. Now, if they set that slag down or moved it during flight, it's possible that a magnetic field could come and defeat the relay.
As the magnet approaches the relay, the switch fails. If the reported UFO debris was magnetically charged, it would have affected multiple switches and motors inside the B-25.
Okay, so if it was magnetic, it could have caused all kinds of damage in the ship. And you've seen him with that magnet in his hand, how it stopped the relay. So that's pretty impressive. But just out of blind luck, I happen to own that magnet, the same thing. And this magnet is so dang strong that I do not let my kids play with it because I'm afraid it will hurt them. If you notice, it's beat up and there's chips and stuff in it. That is from tools and things being attracted to this thing so freaking strong that it knocks chunks out of it. So let's take a look at how strong this thing really is. Okay, we're looking at my desktop here, and this is a dog tag chain that I have a Swiss Army knife attached to the end of it, and here is said magnet. This thing will smash your fingers if you get it near metal, and you can see it just snatched that whole thing out. Let me set this down. I have to be extremely careful when using this thing because it will if I have it in my pocket, it will just yank me towards stuff, and it is pretty ridiculous how strong this magnet is. So now, just in case a Swiss Army knife ain't good enough for you, I better not smash my fingers doing this. There's my sledgehammer. Let's see what happens here. Now comes the fun part, getting the magnet off the sledgehammer. That's one bad motherfucker. Alright, so did we learn anything about the magnet? If that slag is as powerful as the magnet that guy is using, somebody's going to know it. Because it's ridiculous how strong these things are. So if it takes a magnet of this magnitude to be tripping relays and things like that, and they've got a whole box full of magnetic slag that's as strong as these things, this thing would be yanking the watches off people's arms and stuff. They would definitely know about this. This isn't something that would slip past the crew of an airplane.
A failing relay could also put the B-25's electrical system in jeopardy.
Now, the B-25 had 120 amps of power to run everything from the turrets to starter motors to whatever, and they all were controlled by relays. What we have set up here is a situation where we can create a dead short, such as if a motor or something went fluey.
So you're running 120 amps through a 20 amp circuit.
Meaning the circuit wouldn't be able to handle that it's being overloaded.
I think you can be the judge of that. As you can see, the wire was literally vaporized.
John has one more theory. He's demonstrated how highly magnetic slag could have affected both the electrical and the mechanical systems of the plane. But is it possible that the very composition of the slag itself caused the plane to crash?
All right, I'm going to use a arc welder to spark this slag off, much as might have happened that night with the B-25. Stand by. Okay, look.
Whoa!
Whoa! Wow!
So that is burning slag, and look at how it's smoldering.
Right.
Still.
Mm-hmm. Well,
would that burning slag be of a temperature that would eat through the aluminum on the plane?
This slag, it's around 4,000 degrees that slag is burning.
And aluminum melts at?
1,200 degrees.
And this is all interesting and everything, but it has absolutely nothing to do with any of the evidence that they've shown, or found about the plane crash. They know there was an electrical fire, and that was it. And they're trying to jump to conclusions on how this slag could have been the cause of the electrical fire. It could have been so magnetic that it tripped a relay and caused an electrical short, and then the slag caught on, and then the electrical short itself catches the slag on fire, and then it burns hot enough to, burn through the hull of this airplane, which they have no evidence that anything burnt through the hull of the airplane. They have no evidence for any of this, but actually this is actually the most interesting part of the show, so at least I can give them some thumbs up for that, even though it really has nothing to do with any of the evidence that they've collected or any of the reports that have been filed.
This fire was different from a normal fire or even a gasoline fire in that it was white hot. So this would have seared through any metal and caused a whole lot of problems on that plane. It's one thing to hypothesize, well, it could have been this, and it's another to see it with our own eyes, that yes, you can spark slag. Slag can produce a combustion, an explosion, which can burn through metal, which would lead to something like the crash of a B-25. And one of the possibilities is that we're dealing with UFO debris that may have caused this crash.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. He's completely grasping at straws at this point, trying to connect this UFO debris to this crash somehow, with no evidence.
So, gentlemen, we are back from Tyndall's lab. We're back from Kelso.
Although we weren't allowed to dig up all the wreckage, we were able to dig up some really good debris. And we were able to really determine that a fire could occur. There was a reason that this plane could have caught fire.
So of all the evidence in the case, the samples that Pat found while scuba diving are definitely out. But the samples we were able to analyze in Dr. Sam's lab, obviously we didn't find any smoking gun, that there was definitely some sort of UFO or extraterrestrial involvement. But on the other hand, nothing to disprove that.
Nobody's really been to the site over those 60 years after the Air Force cleaned it up. We were there. We retrieved material. We tested material. We found reputable scientists to evaluate the material. We reconstructed the final moments of the crash of that B-25. We're bringing science to ufology. Speculation out the window. Science right here.
And that's basically how the show ends. That, like I said, that was one of the most boring things I've ever sat through. You could do a decent UFO investigation show, but this one was just too much, telling the same story over and over and over and over again and not finding anything. And so they have to fill the gaps in time with telling the story again. And then they just speculate on anything. It was bad. I watched a couple of episodes, and didn't think they were any better. There was a Roswell one where they claimed that there was a second crash site. They found a piece of melted Tupperware, claimed that the sun couldn't have melted it, so it must have been a UFO. It was bad. The way I feel about Roswell can be summed up right here.
Here are aliens from another planet, another galaxy. They traverse interstellar space in their spacecraft. Trillions of miles. And they get to Earth and they crash. And I'm thinking, I don't want to meet these aliens. They can't land on Earth. Bring me somebody who knows how to navigate, okay? And then I'll have a conversation with those aliens. Until then, stay out of my face, okay?
But there's apparently an actual really good episode out there. Unfortunately, we never get to see it. It was either never aired, or they aired part of it and didn't air the rest of it, or the internet's just been scrubbed clean of this episode. All I can find are small clips and commercials for it. There are little promo spots, and that's it. Can't find anything else about it. So let's get to that episode and see what it really is.
We're 25 miles out of New York City, where a lot of people here have claimed to see strange lights in the sky. This could well be the first UFO sighting of 2009.
I know this is going to sound crazy.
I know. 5 red lights over the sky.
It's a little eerie.
Looked up at the sky and I saw these 3 red blinking lights. The color was a very deep red. The light that was closest to me actually started moving, directly overhead, and it just sat there. It had to be like 4, 5, 6 times the size of a jet plane.
Did these look like flares, or do they look different from flares?
I did not think of flares when I saw these things.
I've been in the aviation industry about 20 years. I do have a pilot's license. I've never seen a pattern like this in the sky before. 5 red lights in the sky in a very unusual pattern. I called the control tower at the airport. I know a bunch of the guys that work in that control tower, and so I called down there and spoke to one of them, and he said to me, I see the lights, I don't know what they are, we're not talking to them.
2009 got off to a surprising start for the residents that live in and around Morristown, New Jersey.
I've never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah, the red lights in the sky. I have no idea, so I can see them on my camera, but don't know where they're coming from. All right, we'll call Morristown Airport. Maybe they know something about it.
Police say the unidentified flying object was nothing more than flares, a theory UFO Hunters has already tested and proven implausible. For the Hurleys, the spectacle captured the attention of even their youngest child.
Tell us exactly what happened and what caught your attention about these lights.
Well, I was sitting doing my homework on the floor with my dad. He was facing behind the window. I looked out and I saw these 5 red lights. I was scared. I didn't know what they were.
Paul Hurley shows Bill video he shot from his backyard.
2 lights here, horizontal, and then back here are 3 lights in a triangle pattern.
These lights are moving without any independent movement. They look rigid. And look at this.
Yes.
You could almost make out a frame in here.
That's right. Right, and these 2 stay the same distance apart from each other.
I want to take this back to my team and have a photo analyst kind of go through this, figure out what these lights might be.
It would be wonderful.
Up next, the team analyzes the footage, and their finding is nothing short of amazing.
That thing's just enormous.
So that's all we really get to see, but you can see by their reactions that this thing was just huge. He saw in the video that you could see the frame of the aircraft or the spacecraft, whatever it was. They proved that it wasn't flares. What could this thing possibly be? Let's see what other footage we can find.
Criminal charges filed tonight against a science teacher and a salesman for launching a hoax, literally, into the skies over New Jersey. Mystery lights that had many people more than a little nervous. The mystery tonight is over. The lights very much indeed identified flying objects. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan with the story. He's in Morristown for us. Jim?
Yeah, Bill, the objects are identified, and so are the 2 guys who created them. They now face a misdemeanor charge and probably a small fine. The only reason police caught them at all was because they videotaped their UFO hoax and then proudly posted it on the internet. They say they're sorry now, and as the prosecutor said tonight, what they did really wasn't so much criminal or malicious as it was stupid.
Go out and do our little hoax and see if we can get some attention here.
Well, they got some attention. Today, Chris Russo and Joe Rudy were charged with disorderly conduct for their UFO hoax.
It's clear that our investigation revealed that they were aware, as they were doing it, of the dangers. They attempted to mitigate those dangers, but they were aware of those dangers nevertheless. That is a very important piece of this puzzle.
5 times the two men launched helium-filled balloons and flares into the night sky above Morristown to see what people's reaction would be. Many of them called 911.
They are UFOs, unidentified. They're flying and they're objects. So that's the only thing I can say it is.
The eyewitnesses were sure great people, and we're not questioning their intelligence at all.
On their internet postings taking credit for the launchings, they were so, well, smug.
Plain and simple, it's a gullibility experiment to see if we can get a reaction on people.
Today, Russo at least was a bit more chastened.
There was nothing malicious behind it, and at some point the Morris County prosecutor actually asked us to stop doing this, and with that we made a point to stop.
The two do not face jail time, though the prosecutor says he could have charged them with more serious crimes.
I think that you have to be reasonable in terms of your charging decisions as a prosecutor. You don't want to hit a fly with a sledgehammer.
And maybe it wasn't the wrath of the law at all. Russo says the hardest part of all was telling his mom.
She's not very happy with me.
She's not very happy with him. Again, the two men now face a small fine, and Russo's mom may send him to bed without supper. Reporting live from Morristown, Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Well, the mystery is...
Police say the unidentified flying object was nothing more than flares, a theory UFO Hunters has already tested and proven implausible.
These lights are moving without any independent movement. They look rigid. And look at this.
Yes.
You could almost make out a frame in here.
That's right.
That thing's just enormous.
So even though somebody pulled off the exact same prank in Arizona just months earlier, the UFO hunter guys automatically jumped to, I could see the frame of the spacecraft, and there's no way that it's flares. They proved that it wasn't flares. We don't get to see what their little experiment was to show that it wasn't flares. We get to see them working on something, and they verify that it wasn't flares. But it turns out it was flares and balloons. So these guys' credibility is like shot, and I believe they got canceled right after this episode, or this event took place, because they embarrassed the hell out of themselves and the History Channel and the show. So that's all she wrote for these guys. Watch the episodes if you want pain. If not, skip them. Take care, everybody.